feature editor. So it's 29 with the E.
The project description for this entry is a Black girl, a racist man, and the child protection system that failed to do its most important job.
You can't, sister, because nobody will listen to you.
Here.
Layla Jackson.
Here is where a little boy named Devante visits the baby sister he tried to save.
He was telling the truth. Did nobody listen to him?
No one listened to what was happening behind the walls of this Scott County home where Hennepin County placed Devante and his little sister Layla in foster care.
Do you think it's cool to scream white power to a baby? Yeah.
The man screaming white power at a Black and Native American child? Jason Betlock. His abuse far beyond racist taunts. Some of it discussed in videos taken by Jason's wife Jessica, who wasn't charged, even though she knew.
And you made Layla's face black and blue, okay? Cool.
I never touched that monolith.
Just one day after Layla's grandmother took this video,
Come to grandma. Good Monday.
the girl was violently shaken, causing trauma to her brain. Jason is now serving a 30-year murder sentence. Scott County Sheriff's investigators also discovered text messages between the Betlocks about the abuse, even how Jason wrote the word loser on little Layla's face, and the couple's concern, Devante will probably tell someone. He did. Neither social workers or even his mom believed him until it was too late.
No child should have to go through that.
Latasha Bacon's children were in foster care because they'd been removed by Hennepin County Child Protection in March 2018. County files show Layla's leg was broken. Doctors said it was abuse. The offender was unknown, but caseworkers said Latasha failed to provide a safe environment. The court agreed, and the county took custody of the kids, placing them with family friend Jessica Betlack and her husband Jason, while Latasha went through the court-ordered steps to get her kids back. 4 months later, she got a call. Layla was in the hospital, brain dead.
My little baby girl.
They were waiting for her to arrive before they ended life support.
She's gone. And I just don't understand how you say you're going to do a better job, but now my baby's dead.
This is not just a story about a bad person doing horrible things. Our investigation also found the government agencies responsible for protecting the kids repeatedly failed to follow the law, putting vulnerable children in danger.
Voiceless victims shouldn't be allowed to die because somebody didn't do their job.
Attorney Jeff Montpettit recently brought a federal lawsuit on behalf of a trustee for Layla's family. It claims Hennepin and Scott County social workers failed their legal requirements, leaving Layla racially harassed, mocked, beaten, and then murdered.
If people are doing their jobs correctly and is doing what is expected of them, both under policy and under law, we're not talking today.
There were numerous failures in Layla's case, alleged by the lawsuit and revealed by Carol Levin's review of county records. Example, obvious safety hazards, such as firearms and ammo left out in the open, repeatedly noted, but never fixed. Legally required foster parent orientation, including training on cultural and racial bias, never done. And what appears to be a total failure by the foster parents to tell the truth about their backgrounds. 22 days after the kids were placed in their home, they signed these documents, both checking no, they'd never had criminal charges or convictions, never been arrested, never abused alcohol or used illegal substances. But a quick background check shows Jason had convictions for DWI, possession of drug paraphernalia, and theft. Jessica also had several arrests and convictions, including for disorderly conduct. Did officials ever do that simple background check? They won't say. When we asked for interviews, Hennepin County told us while we cannot comment on pending litigation, the death of any child is always tragic. Scott County referred our questions to an attorney who never responded to a request for comment.
That's a duty of a county to follow up and vet the people that they're placing voiceless victims to. That's their job. And when they don't do that, it's a failure. It's a catastrophic failure.
The death of Layla, not the first catastrophic foster care failure involving Hennepin County. Hennepin was sued last year, accused of missing numerous red flags before the death of 3-year-old Ariana Hunsaker, murdered by her foster parents, who starved her and left her tied to a bed for hours. As part of a federal court settlement of a class action case involving earlier failures, Hennepin is in the process of analyzing its foster care system to determine what contributed to the abuse and improvements needed to be made.
Regardless of why those kids ended up in child protection's custody, it's not okay for them to be dead there.
Latasha has her son back and is now working as a parent mentor for other families dealing with child protection.
That's hard.
But still wrestles with how the system supposed to protect kids so badly failed her daughter.
I miss her too. I miss her a lot.
For Carol Levin Investigates, I'm AJ Legault.
The project description for this entry is San Antonio's west side as a geographical location and also a state of mind. Downtown development is moving west, and while growth is welcomed, many are worried that unchecked development will force them out of the homes where their families have lived for generations.
An authentic rhythm connects street-stained art, sugary treats that delight the palate, the vibrancy of home, the concert of work, and the comfort of family on San Antonio's west side.
Hi.
These colorful bungalows and shotgun houses have been a launching pad for some of the city's greatest leaders, writers, and artists. It's also home to some of its poorest residents. Major development is changing the landscape of these low to middle income neighborhoods.
I do love the fact that we're growing, that everything's rising and stuff like that, but I do also care a lot about the historical and to preserve it.
Gentrification is the biggest fear of many living here, where the average income is less than $14,000 a year. As developers move in, efforts are underway to help low-income families stay in their homes.
Oh my God.
For nearly 100 years, generations of the Martinez family have lived in this house on Furnish Avenue. They could not afford to repair it.
You know, we couldn't even live in this part. The roof had come down and it was just awful.
Now it's being renovated through a pilot program that partners the city, UTSA, small contractors, and community development financial institutions.
Rather than having the west side and the south side become like so many other neighborhoods that have been pushed out and having those people relocate, preserving the historic homes, it really gives the downtown San Antonio its own unique identity.
The program is focusing on older homes, smaller than 1,000 square feet.
We know that we need more affordable housing in this city, and the very best affordable housing is our existing housing.
Right now, 3 homes are being rehabbed to show it can be done at an affordable cost, using a mix of funding sources. The goal is to spread it across the city using small contractors.
We're depending on the city to help subsidize this, but the intent is to go with the private sector outside, even like JP Morgan, some of the other institutions.
More people are buying tiny houses, and we created tiny houses.
Graciela Sanchez has spent 20 years working to preserve the West Side's tiny houses and buildings.
Somebody can't just come in and tear it down.
Sitting on the porch of the bright yellow Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, of which she is director, Sanchez told me about the campaign she supports, Mi Barrio No Se Vende, My neighborhood is not for sale, to stop gentrification.
So that's what happened here. All these homes came down. One person bought those homes. But what happened to all those human beings that used to live here? Where did they go?
Along with the West Side Preservation Association, Esperanza recently secured historic designation for 3 homes and is now working to have Buena Vista labeled a historic neighborhood.
Rather than tearing them down, let's figure out ways to preserve them.
Preservationists scored a victory with Alazan Courts. It will remain low-income housing, not mixed income. Esperanza and its allies want to have the courts rehabilitated rather than demolished and replaced.
We want people to respect the fact that people have been here 3 and 4 and 5 generations, and they want to continue to live here. And so we're also holding the city and asking them to help us come up with policies that allow people to remain here.
The city partnership is opening the door for families like the Martinezes.
All his family lives there.
They're not far from here.
With deep roots on the west side, to remain here amid the pulse of the Polquita.
It's like a dream come true.
The goal is not to just preserve homes, but people and their culture.
It's gonna look beautiful.
The project description for this entry is "A Conversation Lingers."
In Colorado, a conversation lingers. Not as loud as last year, but even time can't make it go away.
To know that there was someone out there who knelt down on someone's neck and did nothing.
And this filming of this man for 9 minutes, you can feel the shift.
The man on the poster never asked for people to talk about him. It's been a year since he was killed, and George Floyd's name is still a movement.
We finally get to talk about it.
As a musician from the South, Saja Butler saw racism all around her. When she moved to Fort Collins, she felt blacker than before.
It's like a fly in the buttermilk, honey child. That's what it's like. No, can I say that? I'm sorry. So if I'm the only black person in a white scene, I'm the fly in the buttermilk. You know?
When the world watched George Floyd die, Saja couldn't. People saw what she already knew and asked her to talk about it.
Before, it was like explaining water to a fish. People can't see what they're living every day, right? You can't see the privilege that you've had when you've always had it. Remember, things get better with time.
Saja sees each new conversation as a piece of her purpose that was missing.
The whole pie came together, and it was just like, oh, this is why I'm here. You're only one step away from everything that's great.
At a middle school in Denver, Quincy Shannon's conversations are not always deep.
Hit by a smooth criminal.
The kids trust the dean of students with their joy.
You're almost there.
Because he understands their pain.
You know, I've been to more funerals than weddings, more wakes than graduations. And so having that experience growing up, I was just happy to meet certain milestones like 18, 21.
George Floyd never met 50. His story validated the one Quincy has always told.
When I was 18, 19, being beat up by the police officers in Denver, I didn't really even have the mindset to know that this would be an opportunity, that there would be moments where people would want to hear about that experience, would want to learn from that experience. At the time, I was just trying to survive.
I do the outlines, then you block it in. Okay.
Harrison Neely still thinks about surviving when he's pulled over by police.
Put your brush in the water, clean it. Oliver's helped me a couple times. I usually end up doing these in the middle of the night when I can't sleep.
Harrison wakes up because of George Floyd and all the names before and after him.
Some of these kinds of things seem obvious.
He puts these signs in the window, hoping his kids won't be another name. He makes sure they follow the rules for the same reason.
I need him to understand that you have to listen, because if you're in the wrong situation and you're not listening, then you might not be here anymore.
George Floyd's murder didn't change that fear, it amplified it.
I feel like I have to be more strict with my boys. It's hard because at the same time I feel like I'm taking their light.
Those after-hours moments sometimes seep into the day. He hopes when his kids become adults, they can sleep through the night.
We are adding this Colorado State Patrol.
Leslie Herod had to make her own hope at the state capitol.
For too long, I think we haven't had representation that looks like me. I mean, I'm the first Black, queer, LGBT elected official in Colorado.
The House Democrat has worked on a bill to change policing before.
Members, I want to bring us back to the entire bill.
But it wasn't until last year that she says lawmakers listened.
Absolutely, these were conversations that not only Republicans wouldn't have, but Democrats wouldn't have either.
Colorado became one of the first states to reform police departments after George Floyd's death.
Was that use of force necessary on that woman, that elderly woman with a disability?
Representative Herod keeps the conversation going on the House floor this year, too.
It doesn't always mean passing policy, but are you having the conversation at your kitchen table?
CJ Renaud wasn't.
There's so much bad in the world. I try not to ever let it come here.
She works from home now.
You want to see former life?
But CJ spent more than 20 years away from a desk.
And it was a very challenging day and time for me to be a former police officer and a black woman in these times.
Reconciling those two identities started a conversation with her husband.
Yes, I told him that I was too blue to be black and too black to be blue.
So she kept talking and reading and learning why her Black experience might have looked different from someone else's.
Wherever I've increased my education, I've done that much better.
Using what she learned led her to a new job at a nonprofit university.
That work is running after people who look just like me, people who need education just like I did, people who, when they get that education, their trajectory will change.
Education led Joe Buckner to his own boxing studio.
My life didn't change much because of my privilege.
Change is not a word he takes lightly.
I don't know what can change when your skin is the weapon. I don't know what can change.
Joe won't try to convince people he's right.
I don't know what can change.
But he'll keep sharing his experience.
I don't know that we'll ever change the world, but we can change our little corner of the world by just trying to understand why people feel the way they feel and believe what they believe.
On every corner, there's a conversation. One that's happened and one waiting to be heard. Every year brings a chance to listen.
The project description for this entry is Houston Crime Stoppers is looking for a murderer who disappeared after posting bond.
It's a busy stretch of Houston where Bissonnette crosses Beltway 8 on the city's southwest side. And it was just as busy back in 2016 when 28-year-old Alma Rivera Melendez was murdered.
Do you feel like your sister's case has been forgotten?
Yes, I think that the system is broken.
Karina Cordona Melendez is Alma's sister, who spoke to us from Puerto Rico.
She was like a mom for me because we are 3 sisters and I am the little one.
She was visiting her sister at her apartment when Alma was murdered on the patio.
Where were you sitting when he fired the gun?
When he fired the gun, I was in the kitchen. And the kitchen had a window, and the window is in the patio.
The man who fired the gun, investigators say, is Brian Vega Velez.
This was an extremely senseless killing.
Sergeant Richard Rodriguez is the original detective who was first assigned the case 5 years ago.
A jealous man who suspected that Alma was maybe talking to another man.
They were a couple, investigators say, in a dating relationship. Police say they'd been arguing all day over text messages, and when he got home to confront her, that's when the murder happened.
He told me I killed her, and then he ran away. And I saw again the 2 guns in his back.
Vega Velez was arrested, but he bonded out of jail and never showed up for his court date.
And to think that he can do it and leave the area undetected, that's really got our involvement.
Cameron Welch is a deputy U.S. Marshal. He's on the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force, whose job it is to track Vega Velez down.
This case has led us across the United States. We have a strong suspicion that he's actually in the Florida area or possibly Puerto Rico.
Both places, Vega Velez has ties.
How frustrating is it that all these years later, he's still out there on the run?
It's really frustrating. It's really scary because I don't know where he's at.
Karina wants the man found that she believes stole her sister's life and her dreams.
She wanted to be a mom, she wanted to have kids, to be married.
Dreams that will never be realized because of what investigators say was her lover's rage. Grace White, KHOU 11 News.
The project description for this entry is Polly's Push. Polly Venito is a former United Airlines flight attendant who has a message to get across to the world about his fellow crew members who died on Flight 175 20 years ago. He calls them heroes and feels it's time to do something that will honor them and the only way he knows how. He says nothing will stop him in this emotional piece about recovery and endurance. Polly brings us through the streets of Boston and other parts of Massachusetts as he trains for the ride of his life.
A daily routine, a revered ritual.
The reason I want to tell a story is for the family members.
Paulie Venito is getting in shape, training for the unknown.
I had to do something that nobody's ever done.
This 62-year-old isn't running. Paulie is preparing to push this cart from Boston's Logan Airport to Ground Zero in Lower Manhattan.
It's been 20 years. And I'm praying to God that I get the message across. Not only is this country going to know, the world's going to know about these crew members. The whole world.
The crew members, Paulie's friends from his days as a flight attendant for United Airlines. Friends who were working Flight 175 on September 11th.
I ran into the house and I see the second plane hit. I remember calling the airport. And it was just chaos.
Paulie had recently been assigned to another route and was not on Flight 175 that morning. Shortly after, he began trying to escape the pain and loneliness with drugs.
When I got caught up in the opiates, I didn't know what was numbing me out from the effects of 9/11. I wasn't feeling what I should have been feeling. I didn't know that. I was just functioning.
Addicted to opioids for more than a decade.
I knew that this day had to come. I knew it. I knew it had to come.
Paulie says he finally got sober to honor his friends.
All these years I couldn't recognize these guys until I took care of myself. I knew that had to come. Once the public realizes it, These family members will be able to put their head down at night knowing that their family member was a hero. They weren't just murdered by terrorists. They were a hero. They were absolute heroes.
Paulie came up with a plan to push an airline service cart to Lower Manhattan with the help of the substance abuse nonprofit Power Forward. And for months, twice a day, he's been training for the 200-mile journey.
Paulie, how you feeling?
I feel great. I'm ready to do about 210 miles, no problem.
But from blistering heat to unforgiving terrain, there are plenty of problems. Still, Paulie pushes through from suburban Boston parks to Boston's most beloved park.
To me, it's not that big of a deal. I've pushed beverage carts my whole life up there at 30,000 feet. The only difference here is that I don't have turbulence. I just get traffic. Potholes and all that stuff. It ain't gonna stop me.
When you're walking, Paulie, I noticed that you're looking down a lot. At first I thought you were looking down at the street, at the road, but you're not. You're looking at your beverage cart.
The pictures of the crew members, I look at their faces and it just gives me inspiration to just keep pushing. You know, when it gets too hot, when it gets too cold, and my legs are hurting, I look at them and the pain goes away.
No question, Paulie marches to his own tune. But along the twists and turns of this journey, he always makes time to reflect and remember.
You know, these people had families. That's what I think of anytime I'm here. I think about their families.
Along his path, Paulie has found endless support.
Good luck. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
I know you could do it.
Oh, I'm gonna do it.
Spend a day with Paulie in the Boston area.
Can I shake your hand?
Sure.
Just say thank you.
It is clear his mission is gaining traction.
You're welcome.
I don't mind a hug either.
Come on.
Here in Quincy, Massachusetts,
Here he comes.
everyone knows about Paulie's push.
Let's go, Paulie. Keep it up, buddy. Keep going. You got this.
How you guys doing?
You got this.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Awesome. Good to see you.
Paulie, good to see you. How are you?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. New York hasn't forgotten. I'm carrying this into New York to show you these guys haven't forgotten either. Bostonians haven't forgotten.
20 days. That's how long Paulie expects it'll take him to reach the 9/11 memorial.
It's the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I'm clean, and I'm going to be sober 6 years when I get to New York. Tell me that's not a perfect storm. It's time. Whatever I got to do to get that beverage cart there, I'll do. I'll flag people down. I'll throw it on the back of a fire truck. I'll do whatever I got to do to get that thing to New York. But I'll push it there. I guarantee you, I'll push that thing there.
In Quincy, Massachusetts, Mark Santia, News 4 New York.
The project description for this entry is a coffee shop helping their community heal.
Why Wapato? It's a small town. Why not? I was like, Wapato needs something.
Wapato in Lower Yakima Valley
It's very family-based. Everybody knows everybody.
has roots rich in Hispanic heritage.
Salud de Yakima.
It's hard working out here in the farm.
A small farm town that's had more than its fair share of big scandals.
The community was slowly just drifting away from each other. Hi, I'm Fidel Negrete. I'm the owner of Fidel's Coffee House and Juice Bar. When you look at the photos of what this building used to look like, you saw it was destroyed. The building just needed some care and some love to bring it to life. It just showed that this town needed to have something to grow, especially after what it went through. It left the town broke, pretty much, yeah.
He's talking about what happened at City Hall. A state audit found years and years worth of evidence of city money missing to the tune of more than $300,000.
People got tired of the bad headlines. My name is Jesse Farias, and I'm a city councilman for the city of Wapato.
Farias says the people of Wapato took matters into their own hands.
They formed a group and petitioned the Attorney General of the state of Washington and the prosecuting attorney of Yakima County. You need to come down and help us. We're in trouble. And they did come down and help.
In 2019, the state did step in with a complaint against the city of Wapato for violations of Washington's Code of Ethics for municipal officers, and changes were made to implement tighter controls for city funds. But today, Wapato is still rebounding.
One of the biggest issues is how to bring economic growth to the community. Well, we still have quite a few empty buildings.
Evidence of that is visible on street after street.
My name is Elizabeth Torres, Radio KDNA.
Gracias por acompañarnos.
I always see Radio Cadena as the bridge between the community and the services, as a way to provide information to the farm worker community in the Yakima Valley.
We're here announcing, putting PSAs, if you guys are looking for clothes or supplies or help, give KDNA a call.
Salud del Condado de Yakima.
Today they're going to talk about COVID. Of course, we're in a pandemic, right? When COVID started, we were kind of like the red zone.
People realized it was getting serious.
We had family members that also passed away because of the COVID.
Mi nombre es Eustreberta Álvarez.
Yustra Alvarez has two jobs, one picking cherries, the other involves long hours on the farm with her entire family working by her side, including son Luis, who offered to translate.
Está difícil con esto del COVID porque
last year our whole family got infected by COVID-19 in May, and it was really hard during those times.
You heard that right. The entire family got COVID-19.
The access to health care is another big issue, primarily to the farm worker community. It doesn't have access.
Efrain Martinez knows that well.
Thank you.
His parents were part of that community.
We would usually go to work right after the last day of school. The next day I had to wake up at 3 in the morning. Since I was 8, to tell you the truth.
And from a young age, he was working on the farm right beside them.
Since I was a tall kid, I would pass, and eligible age at that time was like 12 or 14.
But today, he's running this business with Fidel.
Every day, gloves, cleaning, fixing.
When they started, right before the pandemic hit.
It did slow down quite a bit, like a lot.
They've been able to push through the slow times.
You want to make me a coffee? I haven't had one all day.
Their focus now is their community's future.
On the beach, regular, and then having in a cup. Sounds good. Me and Efrain talk to a lot of people every day, and they get to connect with us. It's good. In different ways.
Everything I make is good.
After 9 years of knowing each other, they've become partners in business.
He's not wrong.
And partners in life.
I think we like to paint a better image for people to see that it's not what they think of stereotypes, especially for Hispanics and Hispanic and being part of the LGBT community.
They let people know they're a couple committed to helping their community.
Like progression, keep changing and keep growing. Caring for one another, what matters is like how they're helping with the community. Here in 5 years, I do hope that a lot of these boarded buildings are actually already new businesses.
To continue growing and to have more opportunities.
A lot of people that actually don't know laws or they need help and they don't know that there's actually help for them.
People feel more comfortable and understanding of who we are now, and they don't mind it, and it's just Wapato growing.
Hey y'all, am I on?
Yeah.
Sorry, AJ sent out in the BOP committee channel, we need the volunteers for 15 minutes mandatory break. We're getting all the volunteers together real fast and then we'll be back in. So that was in the BOP committee channel. Sorry if that was missed, but we'll have them back very quickly.
Okay, judges, take a 15-minute break.
15 minutes.
I feel like we need it after that last one.
That was.
Yes.
So what was?
Can anybody tell me what the story was about? Anyone?
Caffeine saves lives.
Oh.
You're not wrong.
It also ends corruption.
I mean,
oh, okay. Okay.
It was. What was the original obstacle?
I don't know.
I don't
I mean,
understand
because at one
anything.
point
I
she
just
said
watched.
they also battled COVID, and I'm like, what did they battle to begin with?
What, but was it about COVID or corruption? Who was helping who?
Well, like I said, it's not going to, this will play, so I just moved on and stopped. It was, halfway through, I was done. I couldn't keep up. I know I'm not the
Is there
smartest.
a way that we could like, well, we know that. Thank you for admitting it. But can we raise our hand? And if another one of these, do we have to make it all the way through these shots?
I was gonna say that was like an old quarterly rule of like 3 people raised their hand.
Yeah. I mean, if we know it's not going to place, not even an honorable mention, we might want to, because that was dreadful. That might. I felt like it was a Seinfeld episode. There was a lot of nothing, and I wasn't laughing.
So all of these are, they were first round judged, so they're in that finalist list. So I think we should do the justice of watching the entire.
Okay, I'm for it.
Okay, all right. If you say so.
I'm gonna go get some coffee.
It's easy.
We run that one back.
The project description for this entry is QAnon believers from all over the country gathered at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, the site where JFK was assassinated. We examined the reason why.
On that Tuesday morning in Dallas's Dealey Plaza, this is a sample
Let's go, Brandon!
of what we heard. And
I know a lot of why I'm here was ordained by the Lord.
what we saw.
I should think that the police would come and block off the street or something too,
Who's your president?
I'm here to support God-fearing patriots in the movement.
A movement that on that morning.
We need music or something.
What are you expecting?
What am I expecting?
Well, we'll let them
And
tell you.
there was an event that was said to possibly happen here today.
Word on the street is that JFK Jr. will show up and introduce his parents.
12:29, the same time of day that JFK Sr. was shot here in the spot.
Probably the majority of us know that JFK Jr. is alive.
You're expecting JFK Jr.?
Absolutely.
Okay, how's that going to happen?
He never died.
Are we going to see him today?
JFK Jr.?
Yeah, that's what everyone's telling me.
We're hoping. You hope and pray.
And then after that?
He'll probably be the vice president with Trump.
I hope I'm right. I believe I'm right. And I believe today is going to be biblical.
Well, it wasn't biblical. JFK Jr., who died in a plane crash in 1999, did not show up.
Biblical.
That's fascinating.
Fascinating to a professor who studies this stuff.
But Donald Trump always holds his cards to the last minute.
This is really common in apocalyptic religions, that the end never quite happens, but it's always around the corner.
We are Q.
Dr. Michael Phillips is an author and a professor of American history at Collin College.
1229, what would be the mirror of 1229?
And in this peaceful gathering where JFK Jr. did not make an appearance, he sees more than just political theater. He sees potential trouble.
It's a merger of far right-wing politics with apocalyptic religious beliefs.
Strong religious component.
Dr. Kimmy King is an attorney and professor of political science at UNT Denton.
Some people will call it cult. Some people will call it a family. What matters is that there's a belief structure there that you share in common. It's when that belief structure gets challenged that it becomes problematic.
The Southern Poverty Law Center considers QAnon a sprawling spiderweb of right-wing internet conspiracy theories with anti-Semitic and anti-LGBTQ elements that falsely claim the world is run by a secret cabal of pedophiles who worship Satan and are plotting against President Trump. In 2019, the FBI warned of conspiracy theory-driven domestic extremists as a growing threat, with QAnon on that FBI list. And QAnon converts were a visible part of the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, and among the hundreds arrested so far.
I think the ability of the internet to mobilize people who believe in a violent apocalypse, that's disturbing.
You start connecting dots and you're like, are you kidding me right now?
The distance between QAnon and a mainstream political party is not as distant as I would hope.
Oh wow, it's coming in pretty clear.
On that Tuesday morning,
Well, that means something.
where conspiracy theories were the order of the day,
Elvis is still alive.
The Elvis.
The Elvis is still alive.
You
And
work
this is
with-
where I lose you.
Are you pulling my leg? You
Nope.
believe all this stuff? You really do?
Listen, first of all, I believe in God. I'm not some wacko person. I believe in this 100%.
There was one real truth several of these people agreed to talk about.
But you got to understand that most of the world is going to think that's just crazy.
That's why half my family won't talk to me anymore.
They won't.
And my girlfriend thinks I've lost my mind.
That is actually a very common phenomena too.
Entire online communities like this one on Reddit are dedicated to that. Families that conspiracy theories like these have torn apart.
We've lost families, we've lost marriages have been destroyed, people have lost jobs, their livelihoods, because of something they believe in.
And these are people who feel powerless and alone.
There is this need to feel like you belong and that on some level you are right.
The Q community itself gives them a new sense of family.
Michael, how are you?
Family led that morning
Beyond excellent, by the way.
by a man who calls himself
Negative 48 was here, which I don't know where he's at.
Negative 48.
And what does that mean?
48's evil. EVIL. E is 5, V is 22, I is 9, L is 12. 48. Negative evil. Negative 48.
Belief in a secret language of numbers.
Well, there's a gathering here today.
Part of this mindset too.
Donald Trump always holds his cards to the last minute. The last minute.
Okay. Are we at the last minute yet?
No, it's the middle of the day.
Which reminded Dr. Phillips of this ad in a Dallas newspaper that morning in 1963 that listed grievances against JFK and his photos as mugshots.
He hadn't gotten to Dallas yet. He was looking at the Dallas newspaper with that ad. He said, we're going into nut country. When a city gets a reputation like that, it becomes a magnet.
It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Do you have my card?
A magnet whose center that morning was Dealey Plaza.
You can save this footage and review it later and you'll be going, wow, she was right about everything.
I don't know what's wrong with those people. That's what they're going to say.
And you know what I say to them? What's wrong with you?
What a great place to meet someone like-minded.
Like-mindedness you can pass off as unusual,
Well, you realize you're dealing with famous people here, so they usually run late.
or like the experts.
I'm here to see and listen and obey
Watch with a very real measure of concern.
and spread love.
Truth is boring. Fiction is way more interesting sometimes.
In Dallas,
God bless America.
Why would anybody make all this up?
I'm Kevin Reese.
Sweet home.
The project description for this entry is city officials call them cleanups. Those who are the subject of those cleanups routinely call them sweeps. Whatever you call them, few city policies have had more impact on the day-to-day lives of the unhoused on the streets than the frequent and forced removal of encampments in which many of them live.
What time are we looking at? Anybody know? Anybody keeping an eye? 4:03? Okay.
As a city sleeps, a block awakens.
Moving and moving and moving.
Rick
This gets real old.
must move again.
A lot of us don't want to be here.
Fences go up.
Hey, back up. We're fencing this off.
Security pushes in.
My life.
A scene so common, news crews seldom bother to show anymore. Why bother when it's already the 71st sweep of the year?
So you're going to 7th or 8th Mariposa still? Okay, I'm heading that way.
All right, there we go. Yeah, this is hard. This is very hard.
At the age of 44,
I'm trying to stand up straight a lot. It's very painful.
Carrie Gladue cannot help but wonder what 4 years on Denver streets have done not just to her neck,
But it's gradually getting worse, and it's pretty bad.
but to her soul as well.
Some people see this poor little old lady. Some people see the dogs and think, oh, how sad. Those poor little dogs, because people care about dogs more than they do people, and that's fine. I do.
Gladue was born and raised in Denver,
All my stuff has obviously been gone through.
and yet in Denver today, she feels like an outsider.
We get about 3 weeks out of every place most of the time. And then they make sure we leave. And then we leave for a week and then we go back. I mean, it's a constant battle.
2 weeks prior, the city inspected this camp near 6th and Cuivas. Inspectors found 19 tents, one of which was Carrie's. Records we found tell us why the city removed it: urine-filled bottles and a large amount of broken glass.
Because I don't know where I'm going to go yet. I think I'm going back to where they swept because that's how we play the game.
The game, one played inside an ever-expanding arena, according to our investigation. Once confined to a small area just east of downtown in early 2020, the city's efforts appear to have spread the encampments out from its core into neighborhoods previously unaccustomed to tents and efforts to remove them.
We got to do what we can to help them, but we cannot allow encampments to exist. It's just not healthy.
Denver's mayor remains unapologetic about a policy his office continues to champion.
The alternative of leaving them there as opposed to cleaning them up and trying to connect them to service is just untenable. It's unacceptable.
In 2020, the city removed one encampment a week.
There's all this noise over here.
A generator.
This year we found it's more like 2 to 3 a week. And we found many residents.
They sweep, we go back. They sweep, we go back.
Residents simply moving back.
So we're just going to keep sweeping from place to place to place and spending all this money on what? On something we're just going to run back to and dirty up again. Okay.
Case in point, 6th and Cuivas. 5 times this year, the city has moved in and moved people like Damian Miles out.
It's kind of intense. They just come through and they just barge through and they just throw their stuff away. But to these people out here, it means a lot. It's all they got.
And yet weeks after he left,
Try to find a place to stay, so you're just like, man, I'm going back over there.
we found him
This is Cuivas Street.
back at 6th and Cuivas. A game indeed.
I'll tell you, Chris, it's a slow process because we're dealing with the human condition.
The human condition.
There's a reason why I stay over this way.
Carrie, a mother of 3, all of whom she says she still sees,
The painkillers that they were giving me just weren't working anymore. I was taking too many.
readily admits
Yesterday,
she has a problem.
I used meth yesterday, but the last time I used heroin was months ago. But I use meth every day. Every day.
7 days a week, she visits Denver Health's methadone clinic.
Methadone kicks in and then that's that.
Drugs have dominated the last 2 decades of her life.
I'm really tired, sorry.
Heroin, meth, methadone. It's one of the reasons why she says she has yet to say yes to any offer of housing assistance.
I don't need a babysitter. I'm 44. You know, a lot of us are adults. We don't need babysitters.
Are you used to it?
I don't think I am. A lot of people are. I don't know that I am. I miss being inside in a lot of ways. I miss a lot of things. Bathrooms. I miss bathrooms a lot. I miss being able to go home and not have to worry about, is my home going to be there?
What does success really mean?
Anna Cornelius says a study done last year by Denver Homeless Out Loud found what we found. 90% of the unhoused in Denver had been removed from a camp at least once, and 70% of those removed eventually returned to a spot in which they had previously lived.
People do go back to the same spots, so they may have a resource that is close. It may be close to a service provider that they frequent.
Downsize it is, again. No one wants to move twice in a month. No one wants to move 6 times, 8 times, 10 times in a year. You know, I moved 5 times in a week once.
During the 3 months we followed Carrie, she moved 5 times, or once every 3 weeks. The last time we interviewed her, she told us she finds her fate unnerving.
I worry about it a lot. I worry about that often. I don't want to die out here.
And yet here she and Damien.
It's been getting cold at night.
And Rick are.
We got served this morning, so.
On the move, once again.
We have to move. Find another spot to go to.
As the city sleeps, another block awakens.
Yeah, anything they can do to, make our life a little more miserable, Like if we're not, uncomfortable and unhappy enough as it is.
The game is back on.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what the solution is. And I've thought about it and thought about it and thought about it.
A game with no victors, at least not yet.
It's like they're pushing us, systematically pushing us into different areas. And then somebody complains and they decide to push us in a different direction.
There just has to be a better solution.
There is no project description for this entry.
Valentines and roses can say affection. But in Foley, Minnesota, a backyard hockey rink
Get him, Ma!
says love.
I've tied 7 pair of skates today.
The rink where Beth Harrison,
My hands are gonna fall off.
daughter Isla, and son Beckham can be found.
I'm all good.
At a time in their lives,
Center.
they have never felt more lost.
I feel a lot of responsibility for my family.
He's always been the best dad ever. It's always been for his kids.
Beth's husband, Brad, the kind of dad who'd design a luge course for his children, host their outdoor movie nights,
Absolutely.
and talk his reluctant wife into a backyard rink.
I was completely against it. I didn't want the upkeep. I didn't want to deal with it. So I said, fine, but I'm hands off.
Brad, on the other hand, was all in.
This was his accomplishment. It was a way for him to spend tons of time with the kids.
The high school hockey player turned hockey coach to his kids, built both a rink and the life of which he dreamed, till everything came apart.
He was diagnosed January 21st of 2020. Of small cell carcinoma of the prostate.
Beth had wrongly thought she'd prepaid her family's cancer dues after her own battle with stage 3 breast cancer 3 years earlier, a battle her husband couldn't win. Beth and Brad spent all of last summer at a lakeside campsite making memories with their children before sharing with them what fall would bring.
We just held them and tried to answer their questions. But it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Also hard for Beth's husband, who recorded for his wife and kids this video.
I hope that, they can be okay with me being gone. And that, I just worry a lot. It's going to be hard.
Brad's hockey friends asked if there was anything they could do.
You want to do something, you don't know what to do.
The only thing that I couldn't do myself was this rink.
All Beth needed to say.
We're a tight-knit group, us hockey families.
For this tight-knit group to show up November 1st, study Brad's hand-drawn blueprints, and assemble his rink. 12 days before he died, Barely able to get to his bedroom window, Brad looked out and saw love.
So this time of year was one of Dad's favorites, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, a season later,
And he loved to skate with you guys.
his wife and kids are bringing Brad back to his place.
Can I have a hug? You okay? It was a way to keep Brad with the kids for a little bit longer.
Brad's rink, now lovingly tended by the half of his marriage that once hadn't wanted it.
He would be very proud that I did it. And he would know that I did it for the kids. Just like he would have.
3 months since Brad's death.
No!
Beth, her kids, and an assortment of friends spend every free minute on the ice. Confident if they are here,
Tonight was so fun.
It was.
then Brad is here too.
You're part of the family.
He was the best dad. He really was.
Boyd Hubert, Carol 11 News,
Okay, you want to help me?
Foley.
Can I just say, I mean, honestly, if you people are not crying, there's something wrong with you. Oh, man. Love the sound of the puck, really. Oh, I'm in the wrong group. Yeah.
No, that story's amazing.
That man has a gift from somewhere. All right.
Okay, the project description for this entry is the thickness of 2 quarters. That's how much the ocean is rising every year. It doesn't seem like much, but as the earth warms, the science shows it will never stop unless the world makes drastic cuts in greenhouse gas emissions. Without that, parts of Texas will be lost forever. Reporter David Schechter travels to the Gulf Coast to verify if there is evidence of sea level rise in Texas.
It's not happening at a slow rate, like it's noticeable. In the last 10 years, you can definitely see higher water levels.
6 million Texans live close to sea level on the Gulf Coast. It's home to massive ports and a third of the nation's oil refining. So what does it mean for Texas when science tells us because of climate change, the sea is rising faster now than at any time in at least the last 3,000 years?
Right now, we're driving to Corpus Christi to see the Gulf of Mexico. What I want to know is how much do we know about sea level rise? How do we know it? And how worried should we all be? Philippe, nice to meet you.
To find out how much we know about sea level rise on the Texas coast, I'm meeting up with Dr. Philippe Tissot.
The port is, depending on how you look at it, the 4th or 5th larger in the US by tonnage.
Philippe studies sea level with the help of gauges inside long tubes like this that are positioned across the Gulf.
Really getting the A tour here, past the garbage cans.
So this is a little more crowded than I anticipated.
This is where we keep the tide gauges.
That's right.
Behind all the junk.
And you can see sea level is rising, and we need to know how high the water will get over the coming years. Because if we build seawalls, if we build other big infrastructure, those things will cost millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars.
The oldest sea level records in Texas are in Galveston, and over the last 100 years, they show sea level is up by 2 feet, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So why is this happening? Philippe says you gotta start with emissions from power plants and automobiles, which pump huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the air. That carbon traps heat in the atmosphere, which makes the climate hotter. Most of that heat gets absorbed by the oceans, but the heat also makes the ocean water expand a bit, while at the same time glaciers and ice sheets melt into the sea. So that's what makes the sea level rise, about the thickness of 2/4 every year, year after year. But Philippe is telling me along the Texas Gulf Coast, something else is happening too.
See the ocean there? The water is rising, but something's happening with the land also. The land is sinking.
The land is sinking.
Exactly. And if you're here, it doesn't really matter. If the land is sinking or the water is rising, your feet are gonna get wet either way. So a tide gauge here measures the combination of both, the land sinking and the water rising. And so that's why we call it relative sea level rise rather than sea level rise.
Relative sea level rise. It starts with sinking land, which is a result of pumping out underground fluids like water or oil, which leaves a cavity below, giving the ground above room to sag. After that, you add rising water. Taken together, according to research from the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, relative sea level rise is worse in Texas than almost anywhere else in the country.
So is it fair to say that the land sinking is it's a multiplier of the sea level rise?
It makes it worse. Yeah, it makes it more challenging.
So we know the water is rising. How else is the ocean affected by climate change?
So return gas goes here.
That's Dr. Xinping Hu. He's an oceanographer with Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Xinping is telling me, in addition to absorbing heat from the air, ocean water is also absorbing massive amounts of carbon dioxide. As we're moving along, he's siphoning up a small amount of that ocean water.
What is that testing for? Carbon dioxide?
Carbon dioxide.
In the water?
Yes.
Xinping is telling me adding carbon dioxide to the ocean fundamentally changes water chemistry, making it more acidic. That change interferes with how some organisms develop, like oysters, impeding their ability to make hard shells. Scientists have even discovered organisms whose shells are dissolving.
What are the long-term implications of these changes?
The long-term implication is, if the water is getting more and more acidified, you're running into the risk of altering the balance in the ocean.
So we know the water is rising and the chemistry of the water is getting more acidic. But can you actually tell that things are changing? That's Katie Swanson with the University of Texas Marine Science Institute. She studies the impact of sea level rise on marshes, which provide essential food, refuge, and habitat for fish and wildlife.
Plants need sediment, like they can't be in water and inundated all the time.
She's out here measuring sediment levels, which is basically the sand under the water.
And so this is what makes this technique so useful and powerful, is because we're getting millimeter accuracy.
So that's 34 and
yeah,
0.1?
344.
My neck is getting very strong right now. At core of the whole thing, this is a good workout.
With sea level rise, if there's not enough sediment coming into the marsh is drowning. You're losing the marsh and it's not being replaced anywhere else.
You're saying because the water is rising, a lot of these plants are just having a hard time accommodating.
Yeah, they're just being inundated, or they're staying in the water more frequently, which is basically drowning them.
Katie says that's important to people too, because marsh plants are natural protection against shoreline erosion and flooding.
I mean, if you go to the same habitat over and over again, every time we'd show up and there was dry sediment in marsh plants, and now it's constantly under a foot of water and there's seagrass, which would mean that it's always inundated.
A major report recently published by the United Nations got the world's attention. It says it's unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land, changing it in some ways that can't be reversed. So what does that mean for the Texas Gulf Coast? I'm meeting back up with Philippe for a little demonstration. If the thickness of 2/4 is about the amount the sea rises every year, and you add in about another 2/4 for the sinking land, this is what 15 years of change looks like to communities on the Gulf.
What kind of responsibility do they have to plan for this?
They should think about it. Folks who design coastal infrastructure should think about it all the time.
It's what world leaders are thinking about now in Glasgow, Scotland, at a UN summit with a mission to drastically cut emissions. The goal is to limit future climate change by eliminating half of greenhouse gases by 2030 and all of them by 2050. Here's an example of why that matters. Near Galveston Bay is the iconic Space Center Houston. Using research and images from the science nonprofit Climate Central, this is what it looks like today. In a best case scenario, this is what sea level will look like by the end of this century and beyond, and that's if world leaders actually meet the challenge to limit rising temperatures. This is a worst case scenario if we keep doing what we're doing now. Along the Gulf, the refineries in Texas City, the boardwalk in Galveston, and the downtown of Corpus Christi would be gradually swallowed up by the rising sea.
Longer term, we're going to have either to spend quite a bit of money to adapt or move out. Human nature has difficulty acting now to prevent something that happens in the long time, and that's really what we should be doing.
So I've learned a lot about sea level rise. The ocean is definitely rising. We know it because scientists have been studying this for decades. The big question we came down with was, how much should we all be worried about this? For answers, you've got to look beyond how normal everything looks today and wrap your mind around a future where huge parts of Texas are changed forever.
The project description for this entry is: through a mix of public and private funding, a land trust is working to build permanently affordable housing units across New Orleans.
Not much can silence the sound of New Orleans. A steady beat that marches this city forward. But when the music stopped in 2005 and then again this year, Vance Vokerson wasn't sure how long the silence would stay.
It really turned your life up around, and then you had so many people that once they left and they moved to Houston, Atlanta, various cities, and they got settled, a lot of them didn't come back.
For more than 100 years, Vance's family has lived and worked in the city's 7th Ward. When Katrina barreled through here, it destroyed Vokerson's sausage, a neighborhood staple.
The challenge was, well, who's coming back? And then what are they coming back to?
The floodwater eventually retreated. A flood of a different kind, though, inundated this city. Hundreds of millions of dollars in federal aid to help rebuild affordable housing.
What we gained, which is interesting, is a universal interest in a rebuild of a city.
But affordable housing here in New Orleans and in cities across the country comes with an expiration date. The way most affordable housing in this country works is that developers are given incentives to build low-income houses or apartments. In most cases, though, those incentives run out after 10 to 15 years. And at that point, developers can rent their properties out at market rate. One day, a family could be paying $300 in rent. The next, rent skyrockets to $1,300.
And it really exposes that many people don't have any resources beyond living paycheck to paycheck.
Julius Kimbrough is with the Crescent City Community Land Trust. New Orleans' typical tune when it comes to affordable housing has been falling flat. So through a mix of public and private funding, they are working to build permanent affordable housing units across the city.
We are subsidizing both the residential aspects of it, but also the commercial spaces. You could think of this as an incubator.
There are 255 community land trusts nationwide trying to do the same thing. Community land trusts will buy a piece of land, then sell or rent homes above to residents. The concept has created 35,000 affordable housing units nationwide.
This kind of expiring affordability is really all the more reason that we need new long-term robust investment in affordable housing across the country.
Kashuana Hill is with Louisiana Fair Housing. She sees this whole concept as a smarter way to continue to rebuild New Orleans.
We have to be able to ensure longer terms of affordability so that we're not giving away public subsidies only to see families kicked out and affordable homes turned into luxury condos after a 15-year time period.
So you come up to the upstairs apartment.
Which brings us back to Vance Vokerson.
This is a bathroom.
And that business he's rebuilding.
This is going to be our bar area here.
As part of his partnership with the Crescent City Community Land Trust, Vance was given the financing he needed to rebuild his family's restaurant. The only stipulation is that he build 2 low-income apartments up above.
Everyone needs the ability to look out that type of view.
Those units will be affordable housing for as long as this building stands.
We've made a promise to the community that we will always have even just 2 apartments. They will be permanently affordable in perpetuity.
2 apartments may not sound like much, but in a city where rent has gone up by as much as 50% post-Katrina and wages have stayed flat, 2 apartments will be a major boost for 2 families in need.
And we just want to make sure that when we reinvest, that we reinvest in a way to say we're not going anywhere.
In a city known for its music, people like Vance Vokerson are hoping when it comes to affordable housing, this is the kind of tune that will catch on.
Hey, we're coming back. We weren't erased. We weren't flooded out. We have people who have come back and reinvested in our neighborhood.
New Orleans, Louisiana, I'm Chris Conti.
The project description for this entry is Hiroshima 75 years later was shot as part of a series of feature stories that aired during the Tokyo Summer Olympic Games coverage.
Visit Hiroshima and you'll see the beauty and its scars.
We're right on the edge of the river that flanks Peace Memorial Park. After the event on the 6th of August, the city decided they needed to establish something to memorialize the tragedy that occurred on that day.
At the same time every morning, the city marks the moment when the first atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
8:15 detonated 600 meters above the city and created the worst possible destruction that anyone could possibly imagine.
For this woman, the memories are seared into her mind.
ものすごい地獄のようなものを見ましたね。それがもういつまでたっても忘れることできませんでした。
Kiyomo Kono was 14.
大きな音が雷がいっぱい落ちたような音、地響きがしたんですけど。
Over the years, she processed what happened by painting her memories.
長野駅に降りた時にびっくりしました。広島の街が消えとりました。
She led me through the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum.
つまずいたりするんですよ。こうして当たるでしょ。シューズがないんです。私たちは草履っていうのは入ってます。
Yasuka Kondo is another Hiroshima survivor. She was just 4 years old when the bomb exploded. A high school student painted her most vivid memory.
ピカッと光りまして、ドーン言ったらですね、びっくりして川がね1メートルぐらいの小さな川だったので、川のへりこうね伏せました。
Outside the museum are monuments. The ashes of 70,000 victims buried in this mound. There's a flame of peace and a peace bell.
It's typical of a bell that's found in a Buddhist temple, which of course reaches into that notion of peace and brotherhood.
And the atomic bomb dome still stands. 75 years after the bomb exploded, almost directly above it. Now many people come here to remember and pray for world peace. What does no more Hiroshimas mean?
No more Hiroshimas. Let's never have another nuclear attack on a city. But more so, I think it's, can we not find brotherhood?
A city forever linked to the atomic bomb, with survivors who still tell their stories.
私がこの目で見たものが入ってるから見てもらいたいと思います。
世界が平和になりますようにいうのをいつも心に念じております。
That's category. I think Aaron should go first now.
Cool. I would put, I'm trying to get the names. The game first, Brad's Rink second. I think affordable housing solutions third, probably Hiroshima HM. This is tough though. There's really good stuff. Oh shoot, I forgot the biblical one. I think that one's got to be in there as well.
God,
I don't know.
That was crazy scary.
Yeah, maybe that one third, and a pretty healthy conversation about HM for me. Are we settled on one at least, or one and two, or at least the two contenders for one and two?
Well, I think the one is clear, no?
Mine's a little bit, I think mine's different.
Oh, let's hear it.
I really like the biblical one as one.
Yeah.
Editing, I just, okay,
What's
so
the
first of
biblical
all,
one? Sorry, the QAnon?
Yes. So
QAnon,
first of all,
okay.
everyone has got, like, these stories are amazing, the top ones that we're talking about. So just trying to get down to like the techniques and the editing and things that kind of drew me in. You know, the biblical one, the text was hard to read in some areas. They just, I don't know if they forgot like a drop shadow, but I like the way the Q graphic was intermixed with photos and stuff. But I just thought it was just really good, interesting storytelling of taking me along for this journey. I have the game at 2. The text was hard to read in some of it. I just wish it was a little bit blown out a little bit more. And then I had the rink at 3, and then the Gulf Rising was maybe an honorable mention, but it was very similar to how Take Me Along for this journey. It just felt a little long. So those are mine.
I loved sort of the, like, almost the Last Dance method of like, here, watch this, what we gathered. I thought that was really cool.
Tony?
Is my mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. For me, not in any particular order, it was Brad's Rink, the game. I don't know what to think about the biblical thing. I actually was I've heard about the Q, I've read about the Q, I understood the Q. I didn't recognize it like that, like wow. And you're and I had no idea. It was so I actually just got enthralled in it, and I forgot I was watching a story because I'd never seen that before. The crazy, or whatever you call it.
Crazy. It's okay. They're crazy. Yeah.
Whatever that. I was just what?
They're mental.
So
Yeah.
so and so now that I've seen that, when someone tells me I'm a Q supporter because I'm a fiscal Republican, I'm going to smack him in the face and say, "How dare you?" Just because I don't like to spend money. Shut up. So, the Hiroshima one, it really turned me off to see dude walking around with this plastic hair and his 13 shirt again. I know they got to have other colors than the blue 13. It's the only shirt he wore.
But why was he in it, shirt or not?
I just don't think it was needed. He had to be forced. I mean, they had to force the edit. He was in Japan. We have to show he was there.
We probably fronted it, I would imagine. In some
I was going to say, like,
I don't know. It was just, that was a turnoff for me on that one. I mean, outside of, you know, hi, I'm on TV. I liked it. I don't necessarily I don't know. It was really impressive to me. Gulf Rising, what really stood out to me, because everything he did, I learned in earth science class as a sophomore in high school. So he didn't teach me much. But what I really liked was the compare and contrast with the parking lot, what it would look like in so many years. If we do all of these things to eliminate emissions, compared to if we just keep the course we're on. That was interesting to see. That's the kind of shit that affects me, is seeing it. And that showed me something. But that's all I really remember about the piece, was that one graphic, or two graphics back to back. So
if we're going to knock the Hiroshima, I mean, that story ends with this bizarre
closing
looking
shot.
up. But also he was asking some really good questions, and you weren't seeing him ask them. And I thought that was a little odd. So when you did see him, was like joking about his neck workout.
Yeah, it was just a little, I don't know. The Gulf Rising thing, I think that's a series of things that reporter does. So I think he has to do shtick. You know, he has to be somewhat.
Well, I think this is his shtick. This is like appearing and asking and driving and process reporting. I think that is what his shtick is.
Okay. So that's just part of it. And people like that there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the word trash can, right just behind the trash can. I was like, really, dude, that find something else to be funny about. It was weird. But I did like, the biblical thing. So I'm good with these four. I don't know. I guess I'm stuck between the game and Brad's Rink. Brad's Rink as a dad. Oh my, I think Anastasia's comments sums it up for me.
I can be
that story was amazing. I think the game is something I've just never seen before. Just telling those stories in such, and the QAnon story is similar in that you're just telling these stories in such a non-judgmental way while you're hearing from the people. But that was like one of the, I don't know, thought that the game was amazing.
Yeah.
Remember, this is an editing contest, not a father dying contest.
So yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. As much as you know exactly how I feel about it based on my comment, it was beautiful. But I can tell you right now that as much as I tried to consciously focus my brain on looking at how it was shot and edited, I couldn't do it because I was listening to the story and bawling through it. There's just no way. So I don't know if we can, I mean, unless we watched it again, if we can actually make a fair decision, because I think that all of us are going with our heart on it and not like based on skill. I'm not saying there wasn't any skill there. It was gorgeous, but the way that it was told is what got to us, right? I mean, at least I can speak for Tony and I. I don't know. I loved it. I just don't know if we're thinking about it.
Probably flawless. Like, I mean,
well, it did have one flaw. It probably took them a minute before they finally said, why this story was being told. And that took I was sitting there wondering, we're talking about dad. Where is dad? I saw video of dad.
Well, it was in past tense though, so it was kind of telling.
Well, that's great, but the way it's hard to pick that up in the spoken word. So I didn't pick that up, is what I'm saying. That was lost on me, the past tense. So the whole time I'm like, where's dad? Why are we talking about this man?
But doesn't that also make it kind of hit home harder?
No, it kind of made me start thinking, oh, he's dead. So the reveal wasn't much of a reveal. I'm in that sense. I mean, as a storyteller, I just felt it took too long to tell me this is why we're doing what we're doing. But I think the setup of the luge or whatever the hell that thing was, that was so great. First off, where's there a hill in Minnesota to do that? To create that. So
look up Bloomington.
Is that where it is?
No, there's a famous I forget the skier's name.
So I mean, I didn't notice any edits in it and that stood out like, oh my God, that's terrible, or oh my God, that was amazing. But I think it's also what Anastasia says is I was so encapsulated that nothing stood out as terrible. Everything was done apparently appropriately because I didn't notice it, and I'm not supposed to notice it as a viewer. But I can also say the same thing with the game. I didn't notice anything that stood out. I did notice that the drone shot that they used wasn't forward looking and pushing positively or negatively. It was looking straight down, scrolling, which I haven't seen yet in this competition. So whoever, and they used it and they avoided what we're used to seeing. So that I did like.
I think that the game is an unequivocal number one. It's so clear to me. I mean, it's just beautiful and shot diversity and how it's put together. I do want to throw this in there with a caveat. I know you guys dismissed the George Floyd story.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was interesting. You guys completely dismissed it.
Oh shoot.
I am right. I am gonna just bring it up and I'm gonna bow out of it, because not only did one of my best friends edit it, I helped set it up because the former police officer is one of my contacts. So I could tell you why the story was done. I don't know why they did not include it in the intro to make it easier for you guys to understand. But the goal of the story was to bring different voices to the conversation a year after George Floyd and how people felt. And they were intentional about trying to find very, very different voices to have a conversation about race in what is predominantly a white community, no matter where you look, because Colorado is very white.
Well, I can say part of the reason I've kind of like, to me, it felt like it was a parade that the reporter created. So about the other two parades we've talked about yesterday, is I just have a series of people coming through. I don't really get to know them. The two biggest contrasts for me in there, and I wrote about it, was the cop. And what did she say? I'm too black to be blue and I'm too blue to be black, and they fell short on her saying, I had to change my career. The reporter said it. So the reveal on that wasn't great. Which, by the way, that was a very powerful soundbite by the woman. And then the dad and the little boy. I think the dad and the little boy and the cop could have been enough to tell me the story. And then you push the rest of the people. We have a bunch more people you can hear from on our website. I don't think you have to cram them into a 5-minute story. And I just felt it was overkill. That's so when I say what was this about, it was I didn't know who. And and then at the very end, then I find out the woman's the one playing the banjo. Because at the beginning I didn't see anyone, it just heard music. So that really wasn't a reveal. It was more of for me. So that's the reason I'm kind of on it.
I also really liked Polly's push, but this is like BOP, whoever we settle on. These are like absolutely best of the best.
That one felt long to me. It did. I would have loved to have heard from one of his friends' family members. Now, granted, they could be from LA or something like that, not near Boston, but I don't know.
He needed time to show the reporter walking. They didn't have time for that, please.
I know. Heavens forbid, because one day they'll have something where they can do Zoom interviews. Until then, they'll just show the reporter walking. So, I mean, that's what I felt like. It was too much of the man, and the MLS seemed really late in the game on that story of the reaction from people. It just seemed really long.
So where? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, other than the fact the story should have ended, like, I don't know, a few seconds earlier, 20, 30 seconds earlier. I think I have a note in there where I think it should have ended. I thought it was well done. Yeah, I did. I mean, it set up the character was definitely there. They told the story. I mean, it wasn't without flaws, but I thought it was nice. Let me see my notes real quick.
You can give multiple honorable mentions.
Oh, great.
I think I'd be in favor of that, but should we start with number one? I don't know where we all are.
I think we're between these center three, 8, 9, and 10.
Right.
Where
Do we
we're
need
at.
to like a hand vote? I don't know how to settle it.
Well, who wants biblical for number one?
Cody.
I'm between biblical and the game. I just think with editing, I think Brad's Rings is a really good story, but I just think for an editing competition, I'm not like blown away or anything by it. I mean, it is seamless in a way where you forget that you're watching, which is good on the editing side of things being seamless. But I think with an editing competition, I'm between the game and today's going to be biblical.
Okay.
How about we vote and see where we land? I'm for the game as number one.
Yeah.
All right, I can do the game.
Okay. I feel like a QAnon was it was a really strong number two. I think definitely.
I'd have Brad's rank number two. I definitely love both stories. I'm a little hesitant to, just because it is an editing competition, to place something that's like needs more graphics and that sort of thing just over like another sort of just like well edited story. But I hear you.
I think the rink shined there, and that's what it was about, is why this rink is there. And so I think the rink is number three, or is number two, and biblical is number two. Or the other way around. But that's me. So, but I also understand the way it's listed now. I think Sean put those in there. So
Here's my argument for the QAnon as number two.
I bet that's not something you never thought you'd say.
I would never. I think something's wrong with me. But I think this is Sean's fault, because that like mind-blowing nonsense of a story that we saw that I'm still trying to recover from, because I feel like part of my brain is missing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyway, so haha. QAnon. I think that not only the difficulty of how difficult it is to edit that when you shoot it in a crowd like that, but then also bring in the experts and how the experts were done. I think that was interesting. That was innovative. I mean, we've all done it last minute, where you plop in front of an expert, you do like a tight shot or a medium shot, or a shot through the doorway, which is a big NPPA thing, and like little office and whatever, and just have them talk about it. I really liked it. It was different. It was interesting, and it made me think, oh shit, I should have done that myself. So it's for the the difficulty of the execution of something like this in a group environment, and the innovative approach to bringing in two experts that were not boring, right? Like experts are boring, and it wasn't. So for that reason, I think it should be number 2.
Well, I think that's a great point. And besides, my only note for the rink is that shit rethinks my attitude. So, and I do remember the Kennedy graphics with the 3D effect, which was really smooth. So they took something that they could have passed off. So I'm good with the way that is. Do we want to figure out honorable mention? We have 3 things sitting out.
Do you want multiple honorable mentions? Because you had a conversation with Gulf Rising, Hiroshima, and then
I think Polly's Push is way, if there's a break point, if we were to score this 1 to 10, I think there would be a break point, and Polly's Push would be a point or 2 ahead of the other ones. And so I would like to eliminate Gulf Rising and Hiroshima and just have Polly's Push. That's my view.
But if we can give multiple honorable mentions, there's no reason why we wouldn't give the Gulf Rising an honorable mention. I mean, it was pretty and it's clean.
Yeah, I
It
feel like
didn't woo us.
I'd like to give both of them honorable mention.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, well, then that's no sweat off me.
okay, and then
Wait a minute, I have to agree. I agree.
so Hiroshima, nothing.
It too was pretty. I mean, I don't know if we can give things out, like
It
I
was
don't know.
nice.
Sure. Yeah. It was, but what
Is it in the same conversation with Gulf Rising and Polly, or is it like a notch below? Or I mean,
I think it's below. I think part of it might have been for me the language barrier. I had to read that stuff, and this may sound amazing since I've been doing journalism for 27 years. I'm dyslexic. I have a hell of a time reading something that's not up long enough. So, which means I can't read off a prompter. I have to memorize shit. So, because my nerves just, spaghetti noodle soup, or yeah. So alphabet soup is what I meant. So I didn't really care for it because I had to read it, and sometimes I couldn't get it read fast enough because I misread it and then I had to go back and read it.
I hear what you're saying. And I sympathize and I completely understand what you're saying. But as someone who does a lot of text in her interviews, because I do the border stuff, and we keep Spanish up and we put English, in the screen. I don't know if you can, slow it down enough because they keep talking. So it's just it's one of those things that I don't know if we have figured out yet, like how to do that seamlessly, because you don't want to dub over them, which I've done, like whatever. During the Russian Olympics, I did a lot of coverage and I translated and then we dubbed it over, which kills the language. And it wasn't like, I wasn't advanced or mature enough in my head to understand that we need to let people speak in their language. And then if we translate it to English, we need to put type. And so when people speak really fast, how much further, like how much longer do you keep up the text to think about how the speed of people reading, whether they're dyslexic or not? Like I'm a slow reader, for instance, right? But then the conversation moves on, then the track has to move on. Do you see what I'm saying? So that is a complicated thing. And I don't know if that is necessarily, that deserves a knock. Does that make sense?
Well, I was just giving the reason why if I didn't like it.
Right.
That's
no,
all.
I
I would
understand.
never,
I'm
because it was beautifully edited and shot, and doofus all over the place also is a big turnoff.
I thought the kind of shots of the characters just staring into the camera helped me focus on the text. So it kind of just like took my eye there
because the picture was static.
Yeah, so I thought that was effective.
yeah, I do think that it was beautiful. Like if we take out for a second, you know, the knock against how long the text is on screen, which, you know, we can admit that we're struggling with if we're doing a story in a different language. And the fact that the doofus does not belong in that story at all. Outside of that, it was really beautiful. You know, I mean, it took us there. If we felt things, like I was mesmerized by the images and how he put it together.
I can say it's better than some other things that we've given first places to.
Yeah, it's true.
So I can say
let's not go back to.
No, we're not going back anywhere.
Well, let's not go back to that one category. We're like, what the F are we doing here? This is scary time.
So with that said, it definitely could deserve an honorable mention, but that would be 3. Is that 3? Can we do 3?
I love it. Let's do it.
You can do 80 if you want.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's acknowledge the effort and that it made us feel something. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So just double checking. The game is first. Today is going to be Biblical is second. Brad's Rink is third. And we have 3 honorable mentions. Gulf Rising, Polly's Push, and Hiroshima 75 years later.
And I think this is the first time we've talked about 6 stories and we kept it at 6 stories. I think we really
awesome.
like this one. We really did like this category.
Yeah.
This was, I mean, this was hard to choose. There's a lot of really beautiful work here.
It was.
It was good.